Hello and welcome to the second instalment in the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup. This weekend we're in a very sunny yet slightly chilly Oulton Park. Now Ian Jones is not just starting on pole this weekend, he's also top of the points board, which is putting Stephen Daly a little bit on edge. So we're going to jump straight into all the action and hand it over to Andy McEwen.
Yeah, thanks Lindsay. Well, that double race victory at Brands Hatch last time out means that Ian Jones is 4 points clear of Stephen Daly in the early season championship table. But that is likely to change, of course, as we go through the season and indeed potentially as we go through the 3 races here today. Ian is on pole for this first race with David May alongside. Ben Huntley and Keith Towers make up the second row ahead of Wayne Flint and Mark Skeets on row 3. Gordon McMillan and Matt Flowers are next ahead of Mikey Doble and David Sharp, with Ray McDowell and Lee Dendy Sadler looking for better fortunes this time than he had at Brands Hatch at round 1. Nick Edmond and Tom Langford are next ahead of Martin Gadsby and James Stanbury, with Craig Jameson and Rhys Claydon on row 9. Rounding out the top 20, John King and Will Davidson ahead of Thomas Middleton, Andy Coombs, Guy Davis and Greg Barlow. Once again, a massive field of cars here this weekend, so we have the group system back in play. 3 races, everybody races twice and everybody races each other at least once. At the back of the grid, the white car is Alessandro Albano, who has a 10-second delay to his start for a qualifying penalty, so he will leave the grid a little bit later than the rest of the field. The rest of the field, though, does leave the grid now. The race underway, the first of 3 here at Oulton Park, and a great start by Tom Langford mid-grid, but there's nowhere to go. Gets into the back of David Sharp into the run towards the first corner, and waves an apology that I'm sure David won't see. Lee Dendy Sadler locks up, gets into the side of Matt Flowers off the road. Dendy Sadler slow, and Keith Towers gets a piece of it as well and bounces across the grass. Bits of BMW go flying, and a rather chaotic start to the race in the midfield, unfortunately. The leaders, though, go through Cascades more or less in one piece. Having said that, though, that's Gordon McMillan locking up and going through the gravel trap, and he is on the Foster's circuit. That's the wrong way, Gordon. You need to turn left at Cascades. Sadly, he will fall right to the back of the field. On board with Keith Towers, though, looking back, the lucky dice on board Keith Towers' car, waving around to the right of the camera. Looking forward now, though, into the Island hairpin. We're on the Island circuit here, the intermediate of the 3 layouts at Oulton Park, and not the layout that most of these drivers will be used to. I don't think they've ever used this layout at Oulton before, so the hairpin likely to be the scene of some drama, I would say, over the 3 races today. Ian Jones, though, escaping the early drama. He's pulling away from May in 2nd place at the moment. That's the fight for 4th between Mark Skeets and Ben Huntley. So Huntley hasn't had a brilliant start, started 3rd, and is now down into 5th place, whereas Skeets started 6th and is into 4th. So good start for the yellow car, not such a good start for the green and grey car behind. Here is Albano, and because of some of the shenanigans up the road on the opening half lap, he's already negated all of that 10-second delay start penalty. His pace, though, is improving these days as Alessandro. With every round that he does in the BMW Compact Cup, he's getting quicker, so perhaps no surprise to see him putting in some good lap times. That is Gordon McMillan, not pulling out of the race lead, but pulling out of the way of the cars that have actually completed the entirety of this opening lap. Gordon has skipped the hairpin. He went straight through the Foster's loop and rejoined at Knickerbrook, and has, as a result, had to let everybody back through and may well be on his way into the pit lane, in fact, with possible damage. Back with Keith Towers, overtaking now the fast-starting Tom Langford. Tom Langford stays to the left-hand side of the road, and I think that Keith Towers is going to go through. Into Old Hall Corner they will go then, and Tom Langford, who had a top 10 last time out, Ben Huntley and Mark Skeets both out onto the grass there. And did they rejoin the circuit? Yes, they did, and I think they're still in the same order, but Huntley is determined to get past Skeets here. Goes to the inside at Cascades and will finally prise the door open, but Ben Huntley having to work hard here to make up for lost ground off the start. Ben, who had the pair of 2nd place finishes at Brands Hatch last time, which means that he is 3rd in the points and only 8 points off the championship lead, but the championship lead being held by Ian Jones, of course. Ben really could do with beating Ian in this race. Now that, I think, is Gordon McMillan, who has not pitted and has just sort of carried on racing roughly where he was now on the first lap. I don't think that's how it works, though. I think he is supposed to let everybody go, so there may well be some sort of action taken about that afterwards. There's a car off at Hill Top, which I think is Craig Jameson's car, who hasn't made it round the first lap. I don't know whether that's damage or mechanical issues, but Craig Jameson out of the race, unfortunately, in the early stages. Ben Huntley, though, back into 4th place now, looking to try and pull away from Mark Skeets. We're back on board with Keith Towers now as we go up Clay Hill underneath the pedestrian bridge. And Keith, who had a decent showing actually at Brands Hatch, a pair of 6th place finishes for Keith in the 66 car. And he's running in a similar sort of position now in the early stages of this one, actually. Well, actually, a few places further back, isn't he? He's in 8th place, right, or 7th place. Even I'm getting confused now by Gordon McMillan's car in the mix. The 2nd of the silver cars in the queue, just at the back of shot, is not on the lead lap, essentially, even though he may think he is. I'm pretty sure a penalty will be coming his way. So back over the start-finish line we go then. Ian Jones starting to extend this lead quite nicely now over a nice battle developing for second place between David May and Wayne Flint. There is David May, who is the lead Masters contender in this race. Likes of Mark Skeets and Keith Towers, his nearest rivals in this one at the moment. On board with Tom Langford now, as he rounds Old Hall Corner. And move is made by Wayne Flint for second place. Oh, there's contact with David May. That came out of nowhere there. Wayne Flint had a big dive up the inside at Cascade. Now he's opened the door and he's got alongside, but I think David may have something to say about that. Back with Matt Flowers meanwhile as we go past Reese Clayton, or attempt to at least, going down the hill. We're on the outside line though, and the car doesn't turn and goes straight on and into the gravel trap goes Matt Flowers. He'll do well to get out of that. It's a very deep gravel bed, and yet the car is beached. So Matt Flowers' race, which had already sort of started to unravel at the very first corner after that contact with lead Andy Sadler, unfortunately is over now, only a handful of laps in. So not sure whether there was contact or maybe damage as a legacy from the first corner contact that sent him off, but either way, the end result is clear. He's in the gravel, he's out of the race, and I wonder whether that might require a safety car period to get it moved. Hopefully not. Back with Albano now as he continues this charge up through the field. And that, in the yellow car not far in front, is Phil Adcock. In fact, he will now be the next target for Albano. Phil back in his car this weekend, the car that was raced by the very rapid ex-Mazda racer David Chapman at Oulton Park to a top 10 finish in race 1, and was on for another good finish in race 2 before a gearbox issue, shall we call it, where the gear stick fell off in his hand on the final lap of the race, in fact. But Phil enjoying his time now back in his car. He's seen what the car can do. He knows the benchmark now that he has to chase, and will be keen to do so over the rest of the season. Back with Keith Towers now as we head over Deers Leap. This is the fight for second place though, and that skirmish between David May and Wayne Flint has brought Ben Huntley a little bit closer to them now. Ben has been lapping fractionally quicker anyway, and that battle has given him all of the impetus that he needs to really start to gain on them. There's Albano up the inside of Phil Adcock, and I think he's going to go through, and there's a spin just up the road there, and that looked like it was car number 26, wasn't it, that had a rotation? Or 26, it must have, no, 28, excuse me, Guy Davis, get it right in a minute. So Guy Davis with a rotation at Lodge, but didn't make contact with anything, should be able to rejoin. Back with Tom Langford now, as he races down the Lakeside Straight, still defending there from Mikey Doble behind him. And Tom Langford started this race down in 14th, so that good start did gain him quite a lot of ground. As I said, had an 11th place and a 7th place finish in his 2 races at Brands Hatch, so already looking to try and repeat some top 10 results here at Oulton Park. We've had the change for second now though. Look, Wayne Flint has gone past David May, so David May still the lead Masters contender, but Ben Huntley now trying to knock him off the outright podium altogether. So David May possibly with a mistake somewhere, or maybe just moved by Wayne Flint has rattled him and lost his rhythm slightly. Way, Ben Huntley now really starting to apply the pressure. Also applying pressure is Keith Towers as he continues to try and find a way past David Sharp, who's having a really good race here at Oulton Park. David had a trying time at Brands Hatch, a non-finish in the first race, and then recovered to a 13th in race 2. So David right now though running in 6th position. That is on maybe for his best ever finish in the championship, so he'll be desperate to try and keep Keith Towers at bay. Meanwhile, this 3-way fight for second place rounds Lodge Corner. David May, having lost that second place to Wayne Flint, is not yet allowing the silver car to escape. However, he's also not escaping himself from Ben Huntley behind. Ben definitely sees himself as a championship contender this year, I think, and that pair of second place finishes at Brands Hatch will have certainly backed that up. He needs to start winning races with more regularity, you feel. He had that victory at the end of the season in 2018 when Ian Jones was disqualified post-race. So Ben didn't win on the road, but he did take home the points for it eventually. Not really the way that he wanted to take his first ever race victory though, Ben. So the sooner he can get back onto the top step of the podium this year, the better as far as he's concerned. Not only for the championship, but also just so that he can prove that he can genuinely win races on pace alone. Tom Langford is still busily defending the inside line down at the hairpin. Hits the brakes, going to get the car stopped. It's such a slow corner. This really disrupts the rhythm of the circuit, the drivers say. But it does provide lots of overtaking opportunities. Relatively easy to defend on the way in, but then equally easy to run wide on the exit as a result and open the door down here at Hislops for a possible move to be made. It's not the case though for any of our top 10 runners at the moment. Ben Huntley there throws the car through the right-hander at Knickerbrook. Runs a little bit wide over the grass, needs to be careful if he keeps doing that, he will get caught for exceeding track limits. Tom Langford heads through the same corner now. I think keeps it a little bit cleaner. Through the gears, this very steep climb up Clay Hill. This second place battle rather dissipating a little bit now. David May falling back from Wayne Flint, and Ben Huntley's grassy moment at Knickerbrook means that he's dropped back a few extra car lengths as well. David May had that brilliant podium last time out in race 2 and a 4th place in race 1 as well, which means he's level 4th in the outright championship with Mark Skeets, and of course that means he's also level championship leader in the Masters category coming into Oulton Park, because he and Mark Skeets are the 2 top Masters drivers. There, the yellow car in the background is Mark Skeets, and I think Mark is starting to catch that little group, so David may have some competition in the Masters category before too much longer. There's David Sharp, and Keith Towers is no longer behind him, because that's Gordon McMillan, who we are hearing now will have a penalty post-race, so you can take him out of the equation completely now. But Keith Towers there, the red and white car, has gone past David Sharp somewhere, so up a position for Towers, down a position for David Sharp. Still 7th spot though for Sharp, which is a really good run here, and he's not under any pressure from behind. Hopefully the team will get the message out to him in some way that Gordon McMillan is not essentially a fight for position. The question now becomes whether Keith Towers can do anything about Mark Skeets in front of him, because Keith is now the 3rd driver in the Masters category in this race, behind Skeets and May. Running out of time though now, we're into the second half of this 15-minute encounter I should say, at Oulton Park. All of the races in the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup are 15 minutes in length. Spot higher on the podium. Ben Huntley is the one that makes the mistake at Old Hall though, and again he's running the risk of being pinged for track limits by running over those track limit sensors on the outside of the track there. Through Cascades, Flint sideways again. Can he hold it this time? He can, but he's going off surely. Yes, he's onto the grass. Wayne Flint throws it all away. You could sort of see that coming with the little moments in the last couple of laps of sidewaysness and locking up and running on, and well, Wayne Flint unfortunately will drop behind Keith Towers now into 6th position, and that's a real shame, because Wayne was on for one of his best results in the history of the championship. A podium would have been just what he wanted out of this first race of the day. A top 6 or 7 is still a decent result, but he knows that he could have done better. Just started to feel the pressure there towards the closing stages, and the mistake eventually came. No mistakes though for this man Ian Jones, who we really haven't seen much of in this race, which in a way is a good thing, because it means he stayed out of trouble. He's pulled away from the rest of the field. He's clearly had the pace in this race to go for the race victory. He does not, however, have the fastest lap, because Ben Huntley, prior to that grassy moment at Old Hall, had actually set the fastest lap himself. So the bonus point going to Ben Huntley at the moment, unless Jones can steal it from him on this final lap of the race. But Ian Jones looking good now for the race victory down towards Lodge Corner, and another 50 points to his tally will go down very nicely, and applies the pressure now to Stephen Daly. Stephen really has to try and win his race. He'll be out in the next race without Ian Jones for competition, and then they'll both be together on the front row for the final race, which I can't wait for. A brilliant victory though for Ian Jones. He wins the opener here at Oulton Park. David May, with a masterful drive for the Masters winner, takes the 2nd place overall and the Masters victory, with Ben Huntley in 3rd overall. A brilliant race between those 3. Mark Skeets is 4th, Keith Towers 5th, ahead of Wayne Flint, who recovered in 6th after that last lap moment. David Sharp, Mikey Doble, Nick Edmond and Martin Gadsby gets into the top 10. Good result for him. Then lead Andy Sadler survives to 11th after that early contact. Tom Middleton, James Stanbury, Alessandro Albano 14th on the grid from last, and a 10-second penalty. That is really impressive. Phil Adcock gets into the top 20 as well, whilst Tom Langford, Matt Flowers and Craig Jameson were your 3 non-finishes, and confirmation again there that Ben Huntley gets the fastest lap and the bonus point that goes with
Ian,
it.
you were just going around there by yourself.
Yeah, as you know, I'd rather be in amongst of it, in a bit of a war, but I never refuse a win.
Were you missing Stephen a little bit out there?
Yeah, I always miss Stephen. He's my buddy, my race buddy.
So this means you've got that slight bit more of a gap on Stephen, so you've got to be happy with the leaderboard situation right now.
Yeah, on the points sort of thing, it couldn't be any better. We've just got a long wait now till my 2nd race, which is last race, where Stephen should be starting on pole. I'm on 2nd, so I think that one will be good.
We look forward to it. Right, we'll leave you to it, but thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
David, that was a formidable fight from yourself. You've not only just come 2nd, clawed it back at the last second, you've also now top of the Masters.
This is what we're aiming for. Yes, wonderful. I thought Wayne beat me. He had me. Noticed he started making mistakes. Caught him back up. I'll take my time this year. They'll make a mistake, and he did. And managed to claw 2nd back. But hard race, very good. Loved it.
Yeah, Ben kept you on your toes there.
Yes, I could see him bouncing around in my mirrors. He's hard. You know, you don't know wherever Ben's going to end up. But I'll just keep me calm. and it'll all come together. And thankfully, here we are on the podium again. I quite like this. I'm trying to make the most of it.
Brilliant. Well, massive congratulations from us. We'll see you in the next race.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Ben, that was quite a race from yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I had a okay start, but Mark and Wayne got absolute crackers, and I sort of got shovelled out at the hairpin in turn 3. So I then had to fight with Mark, got past him about 2 or 3 laps into the race, and luckily for me, a yellow flag saved me. It just came out as we came up the hill, and Mark just backed off and said, all right, we sort of worked together, but I managed to break the toe. And unfortunately for me, Dave and Wayne stopped fighting just as I arrived. So needed one more lap, and I thought I might have got them. I thought I might have the measure of Wayne if I got in front of Dave, but I think that would have been a bad assumption, to be honest. He was on fire.
The second race is about to get underway here for the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup. Now, the sun has sadly disappeared, but better news, David May's just tipped the scales in his favour to become the leader of the Masters board so far. But Stephen Daly, bit more tension on his side, was starting second. He's going to need a good start off the line to be able to get past May and tip the scales back in his favour to become top of this weekend. Is he going to be able to outbeat Ian Jones? We'll have to wait and see. So we're going to hand it straight over to Andy McEwen up in the tower for all the action.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, this should be an interesting race, shouldn't it, then, with David May and Stephen Daly making up the front row. Keith Towers and Tom Griffiths are next, ahead of Mark Skeets and Matt Parks on the third row of the grid. Row 4 for Matt Flowers and Mike Doble, then David Sharp and Tim Scott-Andrews, whilst Lee Dendy Sadler and Stephen Chandler make up the sixth row of the grid. Row number 7 then for Tom Langford and Luke Browse. James Stanbury and Aaron Morgan are next, ahead of Jim Barrett and John King. The Group B cars in their second and final race of the day. The Group C cars making their first appearance on the grid today. The older numbered grid slots, they're the Group B cars, so that we've seen out already in race 1. The even numbered grid slots are the Group C machines, making their first of 2 race starts today. So the left hand or the inside line on the grid is where we have the Group B cars that were out earlier on, hence why David May is on pole. Stephen Daly alongside there really could do with a victory in this one. He's just seen Ian Jones take a win in race 1. Stephen needs to get off the line first though and get into Old Hall Corner ahead of David May, which is not a given because David May's had a good launch as well and has the preferred inside line for Old Hall Corner. Wheel to wheel for the race lead then. Stephen Daly trying to charge right around the outside. Who comes out on top? Does everyone else get safely through? I think they will. 1 or 2 will no doubt find the grass, but actually a fairly clean start as they round Old Hall. On board with Phil Adcock there, but it's still wheel to wheel for the race lead. A bit of touch there between Stephen Daly and David May, and Daly will just ease his way through, and that was commanding stuff there from the reigning champion. Stephen Daly into the lead of the race now. David May down to second, and Keith Towers in third position in the early stages, maintaining his grid position. He was 5th in his first race of the day. The leading 2 though both wash out wide at the Island hairpin, and for a moment there it looked as though Keith Towers might have had a chance to get up the inside. He's a bit slow off the corner though, and so actually has to turn his attention to defence rather than attack as the leading 2 break back away from him. So over Hilltop, down onto the brakes at Hislop. Daly from May, from Towers the top 3. Skeets is 4th, and 5th position Matt Parks, then Tom Griffiths in 6th position. The winner at Thruxton last year, Tom Griffiths, and this is a very different circuit. Still high speed in places, but a lot tighter and a lot more technically demanding. He's still running well though inside the top 6. On board with Aaron Morgan, the only driver in the grid using hand controls, and if you get a look here, as you will hopefully now get a look up towards Druids Corner, we cut away from him, but it's a job to keep the car on the circuit at the best of times, especially the way in which Aaron has to drive with those hand controls. How on earth he keeps it on the island, I do not know. He has explained to me how that hand control system works, and it gave me a headache just thinking about it. So full marks to Aaron Morgan for not only keeping it on the black stuff, but actually getting more and more competitive every time we see him. The leaders, though, are putting on a pretty competitive showing here in the early stages, because as we come across the start-finish line for the first time, Stephen Daly has David May right behind him. David May applying the pressure here into Old Hall Corner, and Keith Towers in third has flicked the headlights on, so he clearly feels that he's in a position to maybe join in the fun as well. We're on board with the third place man. He has a really good exit from Old Hall Corner there, closes right in on David May. The temptation to go up the inside at Cascades would have been great, but right now Keith fairly happy with a third place that he's in, which would be his best result of the season so far. Up the gears we go then, on board with the 66 machine, heading into the Island hairpin. Keith Towers, of course, second in the Masters category in this race at the moment as well, and David May, the man right in front of him, is the class leader, so it may be the fight for second overall, but it is for the class lead, and Mark Skeets is not a million miles behind them either. He's the third of the Masters contenders. There he is in the yellow and black car, 4th in line, going with that leading trio actually, I would say. Under braking then, top 6 really breaking away here, aren't they, with Matt Parks and Tom Griffiths, and then a slight gap back to Matt Flowers, who has had a slightly cleaner start this time round. He's avoided contact with lead Andy Sadler at the very least. Lead Andy Sadler's car looked a right mess by the end of race number 1. Hopefully they've got that car patched up as well for this second encounter. Towers though, and the gaps very much ebbing and flowing as we go around the lap here. Certain drivers seem to be better through the high-speed corners, and others maybe have an edge through the more technical sections. On the previous lap, it looked like this was the part of the circuit where Keith Towers excelled. He was able to close in on the leading 2 on this lap, though. It's Skeets that is applying the pressure to him, so Daly and May pulling away slightly. They're sort of pairing off, actually, aren't they? Because Towers and Skeets are embroiled in their own battle for third, and then Parks and Griffiths behind have sort of detached themselves as well. So 3 pairs of cars come across the start-finish line at the end of the second lap in the same order in which they were a lap ago, but the dynamics just changing slightly within this leading group now. Under braking, not much braking done though for Old Hull Corner. Down 1 gear maybe, fling it in through the dip and then right out to the edge of the curb, but not beyond it ideally, because that is where those track limit sensors are placed that will catch you if you start using more of the Oulton Park scenery than you should be. David May then sticking with Daly here. This is really impressive stuff actually for the leading Masters contender, who got his first podium of the year in race 1 with a second place. Another second place finish here could actually put him right into championship contention, especially if he can hang on to the coattails of Stephen Daly. David is very much sort of targeting the Masters Championship this year and getting as many podiums as he can, but he's a driver who's looking for his first ever victory in the championship as well, and David May, I reckon on this sort of pace, might be able to do that before the season is out. He may even do it before this race is out, because he's very much showing that he's got every bit the pace that Stephen Daly has got. In the background, Tom Griffiths having a little lunge up the inside of Matt Parks that in the end came to nothing. Likewise, Mark Skeets forcing Keith Towers to defend his third place ever more busily. Ooh, floppy marker goes flying. That was Mark Skeets, I think, who was the culprit on that occasion. They rarely last the race distance, those plastic marker posts on the inside of Knickerbrook Corner that are there to denote the edge of the circuit, and therefore the bit of the circuit you shouldn't be using, but the drivers will use every inch available to them, and as a result, occasional contact with those marker posts is made. Right, leaders out of Druids. In the background there, that looked like Matt Parks getting 2 wheels on the grass, and so Tom Griffiths is the man maybe most likely to make a move into Lodge this time. This, along with the hairpin, is probably the best overtaking opportunity on the Oulton Park Island circuit, but I don't think anyone was able to dive up the inside there, but Griffiths is really applying the pressure and might have got alongside Parks here towards Old Hull Corner. There's a gap on the inside line. Is he alongside or not? I think he might be, and Tom Griffiths going for 5th place here. He's going to go through, so Matt Parks loses the place but tries to focus on getting better exit from the corner to maybe retaliate down at Cascades. I don't think he's going to be close enough though, so the top 4 stay in the same order, but we do have a change at the back end of the top 5 with Tom Griffiths going ahead of Matt Parks now. Nice move there for the number 16 car. Tom Griffiths had a podium as well last time out at Brands Hatch in the second race. Now here was my man of the match really in the first race. Alessandro Albano came from the back of the grid with a 10-second start penalty as well to eventually finish in 14th position. That was a mega drive from Albano. It equalled his best result from last time out. He's up the inside now of the 99 car of Phil Sharp and gains another spot there. He again had to start from the back with a 10-second delay in this race along with Craig Arkell for pre-race infringements that led to that start penalty, but Albano really rallying back nicely. I wonder whether or not he'll be able to beat that 14th place finish that he got in the first race. Out of Knickerbrook, Tom Griffiths there getting away from Matt Parks now slightly. In the Compact Cup, this is doing it for a few seasons now, of course, with much success right from the word go, and it's well worth the efforts because he is one of the fastest drivers in the championship. Now Aaron Morgan in strife because the car has slowed. He's going to have to pull off onto the Foster's cut through, and unfortunately something has gone wrong for the Andy Waters prepared Raw Motorsport machine, and he will be out of the race. That's a real shame for Aaron. He was running in about 15th place, I believe, having a nice battle with Luke Browse. Unfortunately, Aaron out of the race. That's a real disappointment. He will, though, get to watch from the sidelines now and enjoy this battle between Stephen Daly and David May, which refuses to die completely. David very much keeping tabs on the Scotsman in front. Keith Towers in third is fading ever further away from them, and therefore further into the clutches of Mark Skeets and Tom Griffiths behind. There's Stephen Chandler, the yellow machine. Luke Browse is now ahead of Tim Scott Andrews, actually. So Luke Browse there, who was dicing with Aaron Morgan earlier on, has now actually gained a position anyway at the expense of Tim Scott Andrews. So sort of shuffling just outside the top 10 this. I think Luke Browse is into about 11th or 12th position now. Stephen Chandler just in front of him looking for what would be his second top 10, because he was 9th in the second race last time out. That's Jason Bagley in the novice crossed number 13 machine, and Phil Adcock we're on board with now. Now, remember when Dave Chapman was in this car at Brands Hatch last time out and he had that gear lever fall off in his hand coming on to the final lap? Well, on the very first lap of testing this weekend, exactly the same thing happened to Phil, so they'll have super glued it on now, I'm sure, with the strongest adhesive they can find, and touch wood, things seem to be okay for Phil in this, his second race and therefore final race of the day. But Phil Hancock, a real character, really enjoys his racing, and it doesn't really seem to mind where he finishes within reason. Obviously wants to do as well as he can, but just really enjoys his racing and really enjoyed seeing that car go so well in David Chapman's hands at Brands Hatch last time out. Phil racing just outside the top 20 here at Oulton Park. His pace improving though. Turns through the hairpin. That looks like it's Phil Sharp in the blue number 99 car just up the road. Back up the gears again. Over the hill he goes, down the gears go the leading two because they're approaching Lodge Corner, with still David May within striking distance of Stephen Daly. I think that mistake that Stephen made earlier on has probably woken David up now to the possibility that if he stays close enough, he might be able to take advantage of another mistake should it come. We're on to the final lap now though, so is there going to be another mistake from Stephen Daly, and can David May get close enough to force that mistake out of him? It's very hard work at the wheel of the 66 car for Keith Towers. He was all arms and elbows there as he went through Old Hall Corner, down the hill through Cascades go the leading two. Stephen Daly really needs this race victory. His early season title protagonist definitely appears to be Ian Jones, and Ian has won 3 races from 3 so far this year. Stephen won one of his races at Brands Hatch, but was only second in the other. And he doesn't have the fastest lap in this race either. This man does. Keith Towers set the fastest lap on lap number 4, so it doesn't look as though he's going to get the maximum points for this one. Will though be the race victory, which is the main thing, I guess, for Stephen Daly. That's worth 50 points, a bonus point available for fastest lap. Of course, Ian Jones did not get the fastest lap point earlier on either. Phil Sharp with an audacious manoeuvre attempted up the inside of Jason Bagley there at Old Hall Corner. Didn't work though. Backed out of it in the end, possibly sensibly so as to avoid contact. Yeah, KC Motorsport car of Stephen Daly now only a couple of corners away from what is actually looking like a slightly more secure victory now. I think David May have finally accepted defeat and backed out of any potential challenge for the victory here. He'll be really happy with 2 second place finishes, which should provisionally at least put him 3rd in the championship. It will sort of revolve around what Ben Huntley does in his final race later on, but the fight between David and Ben, they were 4 points apart coming into this race. So if Ben can't improve upon 3rd place in his race, then I reckon, second place, excuse me, then I reckon that David May might go ahead of him in the championship. But Stephen Daly will be 2nd in the championship. We know that going into the final race of the day, because he is going to take the victory in race number 2 here at Oulton Park. The checkered flag for the KC Motorsport squad, and a really hard fought victory. That David May in 2nd pushed him hard all the way, and Keith Towers gets himself another podium finish, his 1st of the year though. Daly, May and Towers the top 3, with Skeets and Griffiths in 4th and 5th, excuse me. Matt Parks, Matt Flowers, David Sharp, Mike Doble and Stephen Chandler. Great result there and great reward for the team and his dad, who helped him rebuild that car with a top 10 finish. Luke Browse is 11th ahead of Tim Scott Andrews, Jim Barrett, Alessandro Albano another 14th place finish. That's his 3rd 14th place finish of the year, whilst Aaron Morgan was a non-finisher, and Tom Langford, unfortunately, having been a late retirement in race 1, is a non-starter for the 2nd race.
Stephen, fantastic comeback for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good race. David May pushed me from start to finish, really. I managed to get the jump, and that was always the plan, was to get the jump on David, because I knew it'd be very, very tough to overtake. So, and it is a tough overtaking track, so I knew if I got in front, David was going to struggle. So it was a case of getting in front, tried to manage my tyres, but to be fair, I made quite a few mistakes out there and opened it up to David quite a few times. And you know what, I thought I was going to lose it a few times. So, I mean, we're quite happy with the result.
So the car's feeling much better?
Yeah, the car's feeling fantastic. A couple of little adjustments, struggling with the front brakes, but I mean, everybody's struggling with the front brakes out there, so we're just got to see how it goes. Ian Jones in the next race, so we'll see how that goes.
Brilliant, we wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
David, back on podium, 2nd time in a row.
I'm getting used to this. I like it. Yes. Lost the pole, obviously lost it to Stephen, but I knew that was inevitable anyway. You know, he was going to get me somewhere. Decided to just jump on his back end, pull me around a bit, try and get a bit of a gap from Keith, because Keith, he's there everywhere, and I could see a bit of a gap. I made a couple of little silly little mistakes, which dropped me back a couple of car lengths from Stephen. Then Stephen locked up down a hairpin, and if I'd have had one car length, I'd have been in front. Not for long, but I'd have been in front for a bit. But what a perfect weekend for me. Brilliant.
So first podium ever. You must be over the moon.
I'm absolutely thrilled. It's one of the objectives for the season. I've got a little objective list, and this is another one ticked off, so I'm absolutely ecstatic.
Do you think you might have had David May, or if you had a few more laps left in you?
No, I think at the start I was a little bit quicker. 1 or 2 laps in, I was nudging them into Cascades, and then they just pulled a little gap. I mean, it was more a case of keeping Mark Skeets behind me and keeping the gap. So they just got a little bit too much on me, but I think I had the fastest lap, so I had the pace.
Race number 3 then for the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup about to get underway, and this in a way is the big one, because after a winner piece earlier on this morning for Ian Jones and Stephen Daly, they are now for the first time today on the same grid, and what's more, they share the front row of that grid. There are 4 points between them in the championship. They've scored exactly the same number of points as each other in their first 2 races, but one of them will come out on top in this third and final race of the day. So Jones and Daly row 1 with Huntley and Griffiths row 2, whilst Wayne Flint and Matt Parks make up the third row. McMillan and Doble of the Mike variety are next, with Mikey, as ever, not far away in 9th on the grid, with Tim Scott Andrews alongside. Ray McDowell and Stephen Chandler next. Then it's Nick Edmond and Luke Browse, Martin Gadsby and Aaron Morgan, with Craig Jameson and Jim Barrett on the 9th row, whilst Rhys Claydon and Brendan Murphy round out the top 20. Then it's Will Davidson and Andy Coombs, Jason Bagley and Greg Barlow. And right at the back of the grid, we have got Phil Sharp and John Attard, whilst Craig Arkell is the man with the 10-second start penalty this time. So, 1 win apiece for Jones and Daly, but Ian Jones has won every one of the 3 races he's started so far this season. Is Stephen Daly going to be the man to stop him in his tracks? Let's find out. We look back from Ben Huntley as the red lights go out, and Ben immediately moves over to the right-hand side of the road to defend from the cars behind, Wayne Flint and Tom Griffiths, but it's wheel to wheel for the race lead. Stephen Daly on the outside of Ian Jones. Jones has the preferred line into Old Hall, but remember in the previous race, Stephen Daly went right round the outside of David May at the first corner and got the lead down at Cascades. 1 car on the grass, I think, was Wayne Flint, but what is happening between the race leaders? Jones is up the inside now at Cascades, they've swapped sides of the road. Jones goes back through but goes off. Ian Jones off the road, he's through the gravel, he's on the grass, and Ian Jones has thrown away a podium position. Ben Huntley takes the race lead. Stephen Daly drops to 2nd, he drops to 3rd because Tom Griffiths comes through as well. Daly immediately on the fight back, but what drama. We predicted it might kick off between the 2 of them, and Ian Jones and Stephen Daly made it through 2 corners before they tangled, and it's Jones who is the big loser because Daly has slotted back into 2nd place ahead of Tom Griffiths, but Ian Jones must be down outside the top 20 by now, surely. Leaders down the hill then. Ben Huntley can't believe his luck. He is in the lead of the race. Stephen Daly is 2nd. Griffiths is 3rd, but Wayne Flint tries to go around the outside after he got elbowed onto the grass at Old Hall Corner on the start. Is he going to be able to go back into 3rd place? I don't think so. Griffiths has the inside line for Nickelbrook Corner, but Flint goes right around the outside. Matt Parks is joining in the fun as well. They are still side by side, while Stephen Daly is bump drafting Ben Huntley over Clay Hill. Well, what a high action start to the race this is. Brilliant stuff, and you couldn't write this script, could you? Ian Jones and Stephen Daly, the first time all day that they've been on the same grid as each other, and contact made at the 2nd corner, and Jones fires himself off into the gravel trap. Griffiths, I think, is going to get the better of Wayne Flint for the time being in this fight for 3rd. In fact, Flint is delayed out of Cascade, so Matt Parks now goes up the inside of him down towards Lodge Corner. Can't quite make the move stick though, but Stephen Daly, this was not in the script for the Scotsman. He really was expecting to be fighting Ian Jones for this race victory, but none of them are counting out Ben Huntley this year. He's shown strong pace. He's had 2 2nd place finishes at Brands Hatch, a 3rd earlier on this morning in his first race, and now he is leading and looking for his 2nd ever victory in the championship, the first victory on the road perhaps, because his win at Donington Park at the end of last year came at the expense of a post-race exclusion for Ian Jones, so Huntley was 2nd on the road and then inherited the victory afterwards. He would love to take the checkered flag first on the road for the first time here this afternoon, but my word, has he got a hard task ahead of him to do that, because Stephen Daly is going to be well and truly fired up about that, and Stephen knows, as does Ben of course, that Ian Jones is now not likely to score that many points in this race, so golden opportunity here to take some big points out of their big championship rival and the early championship leader. Remember, Daly is only 4 points behind Jones coming into this race, and Huntley about 12 behind, so this is game on between these two for the race lead, but they've both got one eye on the championship fight already. Down the inside line goes Stephen Daly. This is for the race lead. The Scotsman up the inside at his lobs. Ben Huntley says, not on your life, and manages to fend him off again, but for how much longer can he keep this up? Stephen Daly has arguably been the quicker of the two so far this weekend, but Ben Huntley has the track position, and that counts for so much here at a circuit where it is not easy to overtake. Stephen Daly started to get frustrated now. I think he's got pressure coming from behind as well. He needs to try and get on with this, but Ben Huntley is defending superbly thus far. Tom Griffiths there in third place. He's had some good races with Stephen Daly over the years as well. Of course, pipped Stephen to that victory at Thruxton last year, and he's now looking to try and take second place away from the reigning champ. 5 cars for the lead as they go under the Paul Warwick Bridge for the second time of asking, and there's a gap again on the inside. Is there? No, Stephen Daly decides not to launch one up the inside at Lodge Corner. Huntley just needs to get his head down here and try and relax, but that is a lot easier said than done, because look at the pressure that he is under. 4 cars, all of them former race winners, and indeed 3 of the 4 cars behind him former race winners, in fact. All of them front runners though, and they are all bearing down on him with increasing intensity now. Down the avenue they go for the third time, looking back from Ben Huntley's car. Stephen Daly looks to the outside this time into Cascades, whilst Wayne Flint looks to the inside of Tom Griffiths for third. In the end, neither of those moves are made to stick. It's difficult to go around the outside at Cascades though, especially because the next corner is a right-hander, so that switchback manoeuvre that you can sometimes execute at Cascades when we're on the full circuit doesn't really work on this island layout, because you're then on the outside line again for the hairpin. There is a chance here of some decent points still. He's just gone past Stephen Chandler and Mikey Doble, the pair that we were just watching dicing away. So we'll keep one eye on the 59 car as it tries to continue to gain ground. Stephen Daly will have nicely flat-spotted tyres by this point, I'd imagine, because he was locking up through most of the race into the island hairpin in the previous encounter, and in this one the car still does not seem particularly happy under braking. We heard him saying to Lindsay after race 2 that he very nearly threw away the race lead a few times down at the hairpin. That time he nearly ran into the pack of Ben Huntley, the race leader. So Ian Jones, remarkably, is now 8th actually, so he is well inside the top 10. The next target is Ray McDowell, who has to be one of the most experienced, one of the most improved, drivers over the winter, because he is not particularly experienced. He had a few races last year where he was struggling to make the top 15 or so, and now here he is running solidly inside the top 10 in 7th place. Stephen Chandler's car smoking a little there, perhaps not that surprising given the last-minute repair job they managed to make on the car after that, or preparation job, I suppose, after that original car was badly damaged at Brands Hatch. Leaders, though, down towards Lodge Corner. 4 cars still debating the top positions. Here comes Ian Jones, though. He's up the inside of Ray McDowell. This is another place being gained, more valuable points being clawed back. Now, you do have drop scores in this championship, which potentially could save you from this sort of a result in the early stages of the championship, but you don't want to use up those drop scores too early, because then you end up sort of putting yourself under real pressure through the second half of the year, knowing that you then can't afford to have another bad result because you've sort of used up your drop scores already. So Ian will want to try and get as far up the standings as he can in this race, so as not to have to rely on the drop scores if at all possible. Down Lakeside Straight go the leading group. There is Mikey Doble with Tim Scott Andrews behind him. And Mikey, who's, as I documented after the previous race, finished 8th in every single one of his races so far this year. Well, disappointingly, he's about to break that trend, because he's running actually a few places further back than that at the moment in this one. Needs some things to happen in front of him to be able to pick up a few more places here, I think. What might happen is we might have the leaders getting themselves together here, because Stephen Daly, after a mid-race lull, has sort of started to regroup now. He's reapplying the pressure. He's maybe sat back for a lap or so to try and suss out where he has an edge over Ben Huntley. I sense that the renewed attack is coming soon, though. There's Tim Scott Andrews, the red, white, blue, yellow, bit of everything coloured car, turning its way through. A very distinctive colour scheme for TSA. Tim Scott Andrews, works his way now up the hill once again. Yet to have a top 10 in the first 3 races. 12th his best result, and that was in the first race today. leaders there. Every time we look back from Ben Huntley's car, Stephen Daly never seems to be any further away, does he? Certainly Ben Huntley doesn't look like he's going to be able to pull any sort of a gap here. It's going to be one of those typical Oulton Park races, I think, where arguably the car in second will feel they have the pace to go for the race lead and pull away, but track position is so key here on this narrow and tight and twisty and technical circuit. It's very difficult to overtake, but Stephen Daly is going to do everything he can to do just that. He has another look to the inside of Old Hall. That's the second time he's tried that move. The risk is that it slows you down on the exit though, and look at what it's done. It's brought Tom Griffiths alongside him now. Tom Griffiths going for second place, gets his nose in front. He's going to go through, is he? Stephen Daly has to be super late under braking at Cascades, which he is, and flashes of the first lap there, wasn't it? Because that's the situation that Stephen and Ian Jones found themselves in, and Wayne Flint nearly runs into the back of Tom Griffiths on the exit of the corner, and then nearly found himself heading towards the lake. So out of control was he momentarily, but he gathered it back together. But yeah, Stephen Daly there, in his defence of that second place, had to be super late on the brakes at Cascades, and we saw from Ian Jones on the opening lap that can go wrong. Thankfully, he keeps it on the island, no places change hands, and right away he's back on the attack. Look, he's actually quicker through the hairpin now than Ben Huntley, or at least he was on that occasion. And so Ben, once again, has to drive down the middle of the road through his lobs. I don't think Ben has been able to go a full lap yet without defending. If he ever could, then maybe he could get his head down and pull away, but Stephen is using the racecraft that he's learned over many seasons these days of racing in compacts, first of all in Scotland and in the last few seasons in the UK Championship, and he knows that if you relinquish that pressure for even a lap, someone of Ben Huntley's natural raw speed will be able to pull away from you, or at least build a slightly more comfortable margin. Oh, lots of curb taken there by Stephen Daly, kicks up the dirt as well. That surely isn't the quickest way through Druids, but he didn't seem to slow him down too much. He's close again into Lodge Corner, but Huntley seems to be good on the brakes, doesn't he? There's no real chance for a lunge up the inside there for Stephen, despite the fact he was within striking range. Again, he's a bit wide out of Lodge Corner, and if anything, it's Stephen now who's looking like the more ragged of the two. It's been a very mature drive, this, from the relatively young and still relatively inexperienced Ben Huntley. He's not been doing this for an awfully long time, and yet here he is leading from one of the masters of Compact Cup racing. Oh, big sideways moment there though, and I think Stephen Daly had so much momentum out of Old Hall Corner. He ran into the back of the leader there and lost all of that momentum down the avenue. Had he not hit Huntley there, he'd have been fully alongside, I think, into Cascades, but just sort of arrived with so much speed and nowhere to go that he ended up headbutting the race leader, completely unintentional, no malice involved, just an overspeed of momentum on the exit of the corner due to Huntley's moment, and a little bit of contact made between the two of them, but that robbed Daly arguably of his chance to get through, actually. That's the first mistake we've seen for quite some time for Ben Huntley, so is that maybe going to give Stephen Daly some hope? We saw a similar situation in the first race, didn't we, with Wayne Flint succumbing to the pressure from David May behind him. We saw Wayne getting scrappier and scrappier as the race went on, and then eventually the mistake came at Cascades. Are we going to see a similar situation here for Ben Huntley? If anything, Ben Huntley will be glad, I think, to see this race over, really, because he's under enormous pressure. I can't begin to explain to you how hard it is to try and keep someone like Stephen Daly behind when he is that close. Look at that, he's almost in the boot now of the 96 car, so close is he to the race leader. But Druids is not really an overtaking opportunity, so there's, in a way, not much point being that close going into the corner. It's better maybe to drop back and carry some momentum through Druids to launch an overtaking bid down to Lodge Corner. Well, he might be about to do that anyway, because he's looking to the outside, and now to the inside line, and Stephen Daly still can't quite commit to the move. He's trying to do this cleanly as well, of course. The last thing he needs is contact that could lead to a penalty or a disqualification, even worse. So he needs to, if he's going to make the move stick, it has to be clean. But look what's happened now. Tom Griffiths taking advantage of the much slower pace of the leading two on that lap. They were a second or so off their previous best laps that time around. And so Tom Griffiths is right with them. So it's 3 cars for the lead. And this could play actually into the hands of Ben Huntley, because it takes some of the pressure off of him, because Stephen Daly is now attacking and defending simultaneously, which is one of the hardest things to do as a racing driver. Even someone of Stephen Daly's experience. This is not going to be easy now for Stephen. He would have much preferred to have no pressure from behind, then he could fully concentrate on the potential overtake he's going to make on Ben Huntley, whereas now he has to be mindful that if he goes for a move and it doesn't work, he could lose second place and maybe even third, because Wayne Flint is still not a million miles behind these three. Out to the island hairpin, over the hill, an enthralling final race here. What's been a very entertaining day in general for the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup. when isn't it entertaining racing this championship, you could argue, but the storylines have been well and truly set now, haven't they, in this sort of Daly and Jones championship battle, really coming to a head already at the start of this race. But now you have to add the likes of Ben Huntley into the championship mix, I think, and arguably David May as well, because they've both shown really strong pace this weekend, and if Huntley can hang on to the race victory here, that will go down a real treat as far as his championship hopes are concerned. He is currently 8 points behind Stephen Daly in the championship, so unless Daly drops a few more positions, he's not going to gain that place. But of course, Ian Jones was 12 points ahead of Ben Huntley and only 4 ahead of Stephen Daly, and he is not likely to make the podium. You can see him in the background, actually. He's in 6th position, right behind Gordon McMillan. So whether Ian Jones is going to be able to get that 5th place, I don't know, because he's running out of time, but a top 5 would not be a bad recovery drive, given how the race started for the 3-time race winner already this season. Ben Huntley, though, switches the headlights on as he sees the checkered flag. Ben Huntley holds on for the victory, and a magnificent victory it was too. Ben Huntley with his 2nd career victory, the first one, though, where he sees the checkered flag first on the road, and look at that, by less than 2 tenths over Stephen Daly and Tom Griffiths. Wayne Flint and Gordon McMillan round out the top 5, and Ian Jones is 6th and will lose the championship lead to Stephen Daly. Tim Scott Andrews 11th, Craig Jameson 12th, Luke Browse 13th, then Will Davison and Mike Doble dropped down to 15th in the end. Slightly disappointing result for him. Craig Arkell and Jason Bagley were non-finishers, whilst Aaron Morgan, unfortunately, as we suspected, couldn't make the start after his mechanical issues earlier on. Well, Ben Huntley, congratulations, a race victory in the final race of the day. Be honest, did you expect me to be saying that at the start of the race?
Not really. It was the start of the race. As soon as I got off, I saw Ian and Steve touch, and I thought, I've got to go for it now. I'm not going to beat him otherwise. Got in front of him, and I was hoping a couple more cars were going to get him, but to be fair to Steve, his racecraft came through and he got in front, back to 2nd, and then it was a fight for the front, definitely.
Wasn't it just? I mean, that must have been the widest compact in existence. I think, how on earth did you keep him behind?
Kept the doors open, to be honest.
That's the trick, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, Steve's got incredible racecraft, and to keep someone like that behind you, you've definitely got to be on your toes.
Well, Stephen Daly, a 2nd place finish in the final race here, but it was all about that start, wasn't it? Talk us through that first lap.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic start by myself and Ian. Obviously, we got round the first corner and I got a cut back on Ian, and we just came down into the second corner, level peggings, and we just both got a little bit out of control, to be honest, and it just didn't go very well as to plan. So it just let Ben get in the lead. Credit to Ben, he just defended the whole race, you know, right in the centre of the track, and I had absolutely nowhere to go. When I went left, he went left, and when he went right, I went right, you know. So it was just, he was well covered. He's done well here, and you know, on to the next round. We're doing well up to now. So. Well,
congratulations on the 3rd place. You had a grandstand seat of that fight for the victory, but you'd have been right in there if you had the chance, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we just sort of sat there waiting for Ben and Stephen to sort of come to blows, really. They were all over each other, and we were hoping to capitalise, but didn't quite come off. They kept it fairly clean.
You had your hands full as well there, didn't you? You were watching the mirrors as much as you were looking out the windscreen.
Yeah, me and Wayne were having a really good battle just in behind them, and having to sort of look forward and backwards at the same time. And yeah, it was a really good fight between all of us.
Well, it's been a fantastic day's racing here at Oulton Park. Lots of exciting racing. 3 different winners across the 3 races today as well. And Stephen Daly taking advantage of the dramas there for Ian Jones in the final race to lead the championship heading to Snetterton. It's still all to play for, though. Join us next time to see what happens.